Yep.
Right. So, as I say, YouTube is the subject, form, method, problem, and solution of this video book. I put video book in quotes because it was the only term I could think of to name the ways that this is and is not a book. And I'd love to talk with you a little bit now that you've spent some time inside the video book about how it is and is not like a book. So, how is this video book like a book? Why do we even use the word book inside of its name? Alex?
I think that we use it like a book because you're still arguing what YouTube is to our society. You're still making an argument. The only thing that really differs and makes it not a true book itself is that like you have all these videos that you can interact with the book. Okay. And you can't do that if you were just to open up the book and like you can't click on another.
So in the sense that it makes a large argument,
yes.
It's like a book. Mm-hmm. Okay, and we'll hold on the videos inside it. Yeah, Michael.
I'd say it's also like a book because it has a linear progression. It has a page on the left, page on the right, and it feels almost like reading a book, but you're clicking online.
Does it?
So a little bit, I felt it was a little bit like a book.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad that it feels like a book. They are pages. I call them textios because of the video inside of them. But yeah, and the U-tours are chapters with linear arguments. Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. Like going through the portions of the U-tour, it's almost like each portion is a chapter, and then the fact that like, I don't know, it starts with the pre-tour and then it goes and then like progresses on until you get to the like basically the end. So it progresses like a book as a linear progression, but at the same time it has the interactive element that's different from a book.
Okay, so I mean, so if you actually played with it and used the U-tours, you realize that those really are chapters, mm-hmm. like a book. So it, unlike a lot of our experiences on the internet, it has the possibility of following this linear progression. Yeah.
I actually have a question.
Sure.
Was this all like your idea, the video book idea?
Yes.
That is the coolest thing. I mean, it's so. I mean, I wrote in my question to you on your comments page, like it's the most creative way of putting up a book. Like I just think it's a lot. I personally think it's more effective than like a normal book.
Why?
Because it's like I like how I mean it's something about like it's like I don't know, I personally like audiobooks a lot, and so this is kind of like taking that to the next step. Like maybe it's just because how I learn, I like hearing it from someone rather than reading. I have terrible reading comprehension and
but so
all that, but.
I mean, you have to understand, like what happened is I started just teaching the class.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about how would I pass that on to other people. And one of the ideas of learning from YouTube is that in the modern world, we learn in a variety of ways, not just from reading books.
Yeah.
So then I was like, well, how would I reiterate that formally, that the class is about the way that we're learning from videos, we're learning from sound, we're learning from design.
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to figure out how to do that. And this may not actually be the best way. I didn't have any templates.
For me personally, it works, so but maybe it's just because of how I learn.
But I think that lots of people in your generation and lots of people in my generation are learning more like that.
Yeah.
You know, and I actually do know that this isn't perfect. Like I know there are like bumps and strange things that are not working well yet, but it's so experimental, and I didn't have.
It's a really creative idea.
Thank you.
So
I appreciate that. Andriana?
I don't think I've ever seen electronic books that are this interactive. I, for one, have a Kindle, which is really, really helpful because it can read text, but I've never used it to actually watch video and to learn content through that way. So I think it's kind of revolutionary in its own way. It's kind of expanding the ways we can interact with traditional written material.
You know, I truly believe that 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you'll be reading lots of books in college like this. It's not revolutionary. It's only revolutionary because no one's done it. It's not revolutionary because it's not obvious. Do you know what I mean? And the reason no one's done it is there's all these hurdles in the way between like how I'm allowed to write and how I'm allowed to produce, because I'm a professor, and how people want to be fed information. But like everyone's gonna get it. You guys, we're teaching you. You all have Kindles. You all are on the internet. You all interact with information in a really different way than students did 20 years ago. It's just that I sort of chanced on it first because I was in YouTube. Yeah, Alex?
I just think you're right. Like in the next 5 years, we're going to see so many more of these because our generation is so like visually stimulated, and everything that we can like get that is visual is so much much like more better for us, and especially since that like we're getting electronic books and stuff like that, more people are going to be able to like access these things when they're just reading, and like to support someone's argument, it's going to be like a way better like option.
Well, you know the conversation that I've been having with you about how fun it is for you guys to write videos for papers instead of writing papers, and how you think differently when you write videos. The same is true for me when I wrote this. So like I can write a book, I have written books. This is a completely different kind of writing, and it challenged me in different ways, it made me communicate in different ways, and again, that's like this sort of self-reflexive process that I was engaged in to think about how to write like I was in a video, or like I was in YouTube, even though you guys know this isn't in YouTube, it's a fake YouTube. Okay, how is it not like a book? Anybody want to add to that, and how much time do we have, James?
3 minutes.
You guys have done great so far. Yes.
Well, the one thing that does when indeed, like, personally, when I'm reading a book for or a textbook or whatever for a class, I highlight, and you can't do that here. Like, you can't highlight and write down notes in the margins and stuff.
Right.
So that's the limitation.
It is, although it could be really easy to build in.
Yeah.
That's like,
Yeah.
that's simple. That's and that's a useful feedback from someone who's used it. Did you want to say something, Jane?
And I know we're kind of holding off talking about the videos, but for me, when we were talking about sort of past books that we've used, they referenced a lot of videos, and in that case, if I wanted to see what they were talking about, I'd have to go onto the internet and look them up. But here, you have them already. So for me, that was like really a
Yeah, and
huge
that
difference.
was like, that's really why I started. Because as a professor of film, I've always had to describe, you know, you'd spend all this time very carefully describing this thing you were talking about, and then I'm like, we now have the internet, the things are on the internet, you know, why am I spending time describing them when they're so rich themselves? But also that they themselves are producing arguments. It's
Yeah,
like
you
this
let
sort
them
of
speak for
doubling.
themselves, whereas in the books, the authors had to describe what they were about.
Exactly.
So.
But, you know, I think a lot of the videos, like when I put videos in that you guys have made that are essays, they themselves are making an argument already. Like there's this sort of strange doubling that would happen where I'd have to describe it and that you're making an argument when you can make it yourself, right? Sitting there. And video is making, you know, I really do believe half the argument of the piece. Not me describing videos, but the videos themselves are expressing content. Yes, 1, 2. We probably should wrap up.
I was going to say that I think it's interesting that it's not just interactive with the user, but it's also interactive with the internet itself. Like you have all these videos planted in there in a way where you make an argument on like each textio, and then you have examples or evidence for those arguments right there that then is a link to the place where you found that argument. And so it's connected to itself in a way that, you know, only something on the internet could be.
Exactly. And again, there's like this interest in self-reflexivity, which all media scholars love and all media, you know, fans love. The idea that you're using the very form itself to make the argument, and a lot of our conversation about the internet as an archive is this, not just YouTube as an archive, but the internet is this huge world that we've been talking about. It's a galaxy in its own right, or a universe in its own right. When you author on the internet, you don't have to leave the internet. So it felt really important to me to constantly be entering the whole, staying small and then entering that whole universe and remembering that it's there holding up the book. But you know, that you would think about that because you're doing it.
Going back to what we were talking about before, I feel like you can make even like a stronger argument by having videos there, because you can just present the evidence right there, and people can just figure out where they stand from there. Kind of like the Strangelove book, like he had the pictures of the videos, and that was even a little better than books that I've read where they just describe it, but this is even taking it further.
Okay, so should we end?
We're at 9:20 right now.
I think that sounds good. Any last statement about is it or is it not a book from the crowd?
I'm just curious, I know that, you know, part of playing with YouTube in the first place is things will get taken down and change, and, you know, that's something that happens, and for parts of it I'm sure helps your argument, but do you ever get worried that some of your videos that you're relying on to make points are ever going to get taken down?
They have been, and some of you have sent me things that are broken, and one of them was from a student from 2 years ago who had made everything private, and I emailed her and I said, would you unprivate everything? And she did. It turns out she's working in social media networking, and taking this class was like the first step, and she didn't know about the book, so she's back live. But I'm I'm scared YouTube's gonna take the whole thing down. That's my big fear. Don't take it down, YouTube. Let it live.